Good afternoon, everyone. This is Beth Bronder with ACCE. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be talking about getting back to travel and to non-dues revenue. We are anxious to get started. And first, I want to start by thanking our friends at Aventura World for producing this webinar with us. I want to give a nod to our longtime supporter, Ian Scott, who is the CEO of Aventura. He's going to be sharing his expertise today. He will also have one of his longtime partners with him, Joe Unterreiner. I hope I said that right, Joe. Joining from Montana, where he ran a chamber there for 11 years. And probably more importantly to this conversation, he just got back from a trip to France. So he's going to share his experiences of what it's like to be back to travel and also what travelers can expect when they get there. So we're excited to hear from both of them. Before I hand it over to them and ask them to do self-introductions, I just want to do a couple quick housekeeping items. You're on mute and your video is off just to cut down on noise and distractions. If you have questions throughout today's session, go ahead and put them in the chat box. There will also be ample time at the end of the session to answer those questions and anything else that you might have in mind. We do have a couple poll questions as I finish through the housekeeping. I'm going to ask Ellie from ACCE to go ahead and do that while I'm talking. And if you could just answer a couple questions for us, we just want to sort of set the table for today's discussion. Okay, so we got some poll questions. Are you planning to travel abroad in 2022? If you could go ahead and answer. Number two, if you are planning to travel, what is the purpose of your travel? Business, vacation, holiday, a chamber program, or none of the above? And we've got some results coming in. It looks like, are you planning to travel? We've got 50% yes, 25% no, and 25% uncertain. It looks like the majority of the people that will be traveling will be doing so for vacation or holiday. Interesting. Ellie, can I see the second set of questions?
You may just have to scroll down, but this is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All four.
Number 3, if you are not traveling, what is the reason? It looks like 20% said COVID concerns and another 80% none of the above. And then finally, does your chamber currently have a travel program? 20% of you do, 60% of you do not. So that kind of gives us an idea of where we are as a group. It also gives our speakers a little bit of guidance as to what to cover. So one final thing before I turn things over to Ian, I want everyone to know that this session is being recorded. So if after the fact you would like to share with a colleague or someone in your network, it will be sent to you tomorrow. And also we will be posting it on our website. So please think of that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our travel chamber expert, Ian Scott, who's going to tell us more about what's going on out there in the world. Ian?
Thank you, Beth. Thanks for having me here today. And it's always good to be presenting at ACCE. Joe, my good friend Joe's on the call today over in Montana, and we'll gain an introduction from him shortly, and be able to discuss his experiences, his adventures after just returning back from the south of France and Provence this August with 50 chamber travelers. Travel, as we all know, has been affected over the last 18 months, but it is coming back in force. We have been operating programs since March of 2021, and we've noticed that there's a great deal of optimism and positivity happening in the industry. And we're seeing it from some of the big players like airlines. Airlines now are bringing in brand new routes to destinations they've never been to before. In our travel planning for the fall, we're finding non-stops into the United States from the south of France by carriers out of destinations that they've never done before. The same applies to Italy and Spain and Northern Europe. So the machinery is working. The planning is being brought forth to start the travel of the American public again in great strength, as they always have done for the fall of 2021 and again into 2022. Now, before we get too deep into everything, I see there's a whole host of new people online that we don't know. And we've got people from as far away as Alaska on the call today. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an understanding of what we're going to discuss today. We're going to discuss a little bit about who Aventura World is. We're going to talk a little bit of how does chamber travel work. We're going to then meet Joe, Joe Andorina, who just returned, as I mentioned, from France. And we're going to turn over the meeting. He's going to bring forth his expertise into this field. Joe is and was one of the biggest producers in chamber travel in the United States. And I can't give him enough kudos for this, because he is an expert and a master in producing chamber travelers and terrific amounts of revenue. And it's great to have him here. We're also going to talk, Joe's going to talk about why should a chamber offer travel. And we do thank you for attending this event. Before we move on, let's talk a little bit about who Aventura World is. We are a travel wholesaler, not a travel agent. And we've been in business since 1972. Next year will be our 50th anniversary. My goodness. We're a member of Sakara International Travel Group. They have employees worldwide, offices in London, Paris, Rome, Cairo, Delhi, and both sides of the United States. They have riverboats, hotels, and other travel-related entities and services. Now, Aventura World is dedicated to producing the treasures of the world, from domestic programs through to the capitals of Europe, through to the Barrier Reef and all points in between. And because of that 50 years worth of experience, we know how to operate programs, how to market programs, and to advise a chamber on destinations that they should start or go to. Now, we've been I think it's actually 10 years now. I might not have changed this slide. We've been a sponsor of ACCE for 10 years now, and proud to be working with most of the top producing chambers in the country for their fundraising travel need. And this is important, fundraising travel. We are a fundraising travel company. Our market is fundraising, our byproduct is travel. And we'll be able to discuss a little bit more about that on a one-on-one basis, should you wish, in a separate call. Now, how does chamber travel work? Well, chambers, whether it's in Alaska, North Carolina, Montana, whether it's in Florida, you're all trusted and well-respected members of the local community. The problem is, however, there are many people in the community that don't have a vehicle or a possibility to communicate with you and to transact with you. And Chamber Travel brings forth an opportunity for members and non-members to be able to communicate and transact with the Chamber. Because you are a trusted source, you can come out with a product, and this is what we like to do, a product of travel to a destination which is priced at a price too good to believe. But because the Chamber is offering the program, they trust the Chamber and say, because the Chamber's offering this, it must be true. And that's one of the reasons why Chamber Travel works wonderfully. Chambers enjoy being a leader in the community and with their members. So it's a member service and a service to the local community that we bring forth. Chambers take care of relationships, and they build their chamber on relationships. Affinity is so important in travel, and the Chambers love and could teach me about affinity. So you've already got a head start on how to gain people, how to build the affinity of programs and such. All chambers are professional people. Not everybody in the group travel industry brings forth the professionalism that a chamber does. You have media at your fingertips, social media, print media, radio, TV. So when you decide to get the message out there, you get the message out and you market it really well. Whether it be a golf outing, whether it be a village fair, whether it be a travel program, chambers are committed to creating an outstanding experience. And travel is an outstanding learning experience for members and members of the local community. That's a little bit about the traveler side. And now I'm going to introduce Joe Antorena, the immediate past CEO of the Kalispell Area Chamber in Montana. I've known Joe for maybe 11 years now, since we were both boys, Joe, I think. We met in Spain many, many years ago. And since then, he's been a valued partner and a trusted friend of mine. And I welcome you to the event today. And as I mentioned, we have just assisted Joe and his travels with 50 people this August to come back from the south of France. Joe, welcome.
Thank you, Ian, and good to be with everybody here. And I'm enjoying the slides you picked for the slideshow here, because those are all images from our recent trip. And it was really a fabulous trip to the south of France. And we were anxious to get on the way there. So it's good to be with everybody and be happy to, kind of explain our enjoyment and, how they were productive for our chamber, and answer any questions I can along the way. There's a little bit of a bio there on your slide, Ian, but maybe I think it's important for people to know we had a great program over the years. As you said, we met back in 2010 and began working together on that trip the following year. We went to Spain, the Costa del Sol, that had a trip to the North Africa, and as a day trip, and have been doing lots of trips since. So since then, we've had a trip a year on average. I think once we did 2 trips, and that was so we could pick up Munich during Oktoberfest in the fall, but our typical trip is a spring trip. But our community, just to give you a point of reference, our market is a market of about 100,000 here in Northwest Montana. We're fairly isolated, but we're a quickly growing community because of some of the amenities we have, like Glacier National Park and Whitefish Mountain Ski Resort, and just a beautiful mountainous area that people want to live and work in. So we have a great market in which to pitch to. And maybe if you go to that next slide, then I'll
Joe, I'm going to go to that slide, but I think this firework display here was an interesting event, wasn't it?
Yeah, the fireworks show there, and of course, I told everybody that Ian and I had arranged all that, just especially for our 50-person tour group. But we were in Nice on what turned out to be the, what is that, maybe the 70 or 75th anniversary of the liberation of Nice by the Allies. And as we're doing our day tour of Nice with our tour guide, we noticed there's a parade coming, and it's all U.S. military vehicles and American flags. And so I have to say, at least in our case, the whole reputation of the rude French was certainly not the case. And as you can see, there was a huge fireworks show that night, and lots of good spirit for Americans, at least on that day in Nice.
Great. Yeah, when I saw that, I said that must have been the event. So tell me, Joe, we've got a slide up here, and I know you're going to bring some of those, but why did the chamber decide to travel?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was on the ACCE board when Randy from the Long Beach Chamber first talked about China trips. So that was in the summer of 2008, right when they were about to have the Beijing Olympics. And, they talked about the trip and what they had done. And I decided right there on the spot to sign up with for that trip. So that was in the summer of 2008. We launched a month before the Olympics, and we were sold out of 100 seats in 30 days. And I said, we might be onto something here. This is pretty good. And took a couple of China trips, and then Ian and I, as you know, I went on a fam trip with you to Malaga, the Costa del Sol in Spain, and then things just took off from there, and have really it's been a huge success for us. Great non-dues revenue. We budgeted usually kind of 45 or 50,000 a year for the one trip that we did, and as I said, we're not a large market, but we developed over the years a list of over 1,000 people that have traveled with us. So when we're announcing the next trip, we already have a built-in audience, and we can talk more about marketing a trip, later in the segment here. But it's been great for us, and we've just been some fabulous destinations. We've been on Ireland and St. Patrick's Day, and as I said, Germany during Oktoberfest, and multiple trips that included some portion of Italy, and just a really great travel experience for us over the years. So thanks for taking good care of us, Ian.
No. So, I mean, with that budgeted $45,000 to $50,000 a year, you've been able to do a whole host of things. Tell us a little bit about that employee retention and the foundation, and then, building your global awareness and the culture. Yeah,
so, we try to use the benefits of the trip to apply, in many different ways. So, it is, there's a commission earned like a travel agent in there. So, we've taken that, and it's been a fundraiser, income producing event for us. So that's been great. But I think the other area is, there's an allocation of, for every so many seats you sell, you get a free seat, and we've used that as a little bit of an employee both incentive and but also an employee retention tool. I mean, after all, how many, it's tough for chambers to compete for labor out there, but how many employers are offering an opportunity to go on a 9 or 10 day, European or international vacation? I can tell you it's not many. And it was something our employees really liked, and I would give sales incentives around that. And so we had a lot of fun with it. And it's great, just program management experience for our staff as well, to learn how to, manage a group and deal with everybody and just all the little issues that come up. So, I looked at it as also professional development for our staff as well.
Great. I have I have used your name as I've been speaking, Joe, with chambers across the country, in the fact of your foundation that you've developed, but also your mission, using that revenue to do feasibility studies and such as that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was one of the things over the years I was always a little surprised about. These just said, I don't see how this fits in the mission, and it did for us in a big way, as you mentioned. So one of the things is a high priority for our chamber is the expansion of airline service to our airport. Right, we're a international tourism destination with Glacier National Park and our destination ski resort, and so we're working on developing more air service. So the way that we did that was by working with airlines through minimum revenue guarantees, or MRGs, and then to assist in marketing. Once an airline had decided to open up a new route, we would assist in marketing. So there's a separate private nonprofit that the chamber was involved in, and out of almost 100 investors, because of our chamber travel program, we were the #2 donor of this group since 2010, and that is a huge deal. So when I got up in front of the audience in our orientations and talked about what is your money going towards, that's what it's going towards. It was a great tie-in for us as well. Then the other thing was that you mentioned is we have a foundation, a 501c3 foundation that is an affiliate of our 501c6 chamber, and we do an annual fundraiser every year as an auction and fundraising event, and we would market that to those 1,000 travelers who, now some were chamber members, but a lot were just members of the community or retired individuals. And that became a nice source of donations and an additional group of people we could market to for fundraising for our foundation. So yeah, we looked for, really to leverage that group that, knows us and likes us and supports us for multiple purposes.
Well done, Joe. I've, as I mentioned, I've seen you in action here, and you're a true guru at this. And I happen to be up in Kalispell, as you know, just before the France trip, creating a pre-departure meeting. And I think the way you have built the culture on global awareness and the culture of camaraderie of travel with the chamber is terrific. Can you just elaborate on how you created that travel culture and how you marketed it to get those travelers?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, a lot of them are past chamber members and board members and award winners at the chamber, and then they tell their family and their friends, and it just went from that circle just kept getting bigger and bigger over the years. But as you know, when we got started, it was a brand new thing. I just you gave me a call and you said, hey, I understand you've had pretty good success on the China trip. I'll bet you're trying to figure out how to keep it going. And I was, yeah, you are exactly right. Where would you recommend as a next step? And off we went to Spain in 2011 or 12. But we try to make it be a really good experience. After all, these are people who are investing $3,000 and $4,000 per person on these trips, so they're making a big investment. And for us, chamber travel, after member dues and our annual banquet fundraiser, chamber travel for us was the third highest source of revenue consistently year after year for us. So it was a great source of revenue and very important to our overall, marketing and revenue goals. So we, wanted to take good care of these people and just make sure they were well looked after, especially the people who have taken multiple trips for us. And there's, a number of them that virtually come every year on these on our chamber trips. We want to make sure we take good care of them and so on. And, maybe I should just sort of pause here for a second and talk a little bit about how we marketed the trip. Is that a good place here, Ian?
Yeah, why not? I'm going to move to the next. Sorry. Yes, why not? Yes, it's
okay.
A good one.
Yeah. So as you know, for us, Northwest Montana is can be April, sort of, that spring is a bit of a dip. There's really it's still sort of snowy out, people are tired of skiing. They're ready to move on to spring and summer. And, it's a bit messy and muddy up here. So it's an ideal time to get out of here. There's really not, social events. It's between high school sports. So that timing worked out great for us. And the falls are beautiful here. And Montana Grizzly football games and hunting and so on. So that spring time frame was ideal for us. So our timing was we'd come back from that April trip, work with you to decide on where that next location and trip was going to be. Then we'd do a big public launch in July, and we would buy media around that, ads in the newspapers. We'd have a big blitz via all of our chamber email network. We'd buy, Facebook posts and push that out to, our local market and a greater market, throughout Montana. So we'd make a big push for that opening, as you know, Ian, because you've been to many of those. Those were, we'd have 150, 200 people to those. Not everybody would sign up, but many just signed up that night. And then we would do a monthly orientation, so a mini version of that once a month, then through December. And we typically, according to our travel schedule, we're done there about mid-November or mid-December. So we were done in December and then focused on just getting that trip put on late March or early April. So we would continue to sell. And that way, I think, it's important for the chamber execs out there to know we didn't hire any additional staff for this because of spreading that work out over a year and only typically doing one trip a year. We didn't have to hire any additional staff, and it was just little by little where that work could be worked into a regular work day. So it was very efficient from a staffing standpoint in putting that on, and then just repeat the cycle.
Right. Well, I remember on numerous occasions being in the biggest conference room in Kalispell, and it was brimming. So many people waiting to hear of the adventure that was forthcoming. So you have done a wonderful job getting the message out, Joe.
Oh yeah. And we tried to make those funny. And like, for example, in the south of France, we would always have some French wine and some cheese and charcuterie board and, have a little fun with it all. After all, that's the point. Yeah.
I'm sure many people who are listening today and who may listen to it as a recording will say, what's the difference between your past trips pre-COVID to the trip you just experienced, Joe, to the south of France? Tell us a little bit about the differences that you had, the things that you had to do. Were they minimal or to actually get on the program in 2021?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Ian. So we were really thrilled. This was a trip we originally hoped to be taking in March of 20. Then, of course, COVID hit and everything was delayed, and that we were finally able to take August 23 through 31. So we just got back just about a month ago. And I think some of the thing that was really a sort of a surprise to us is we were among the earliest groups to be returning to France. So our French tour guide, who was Paris based and in charge of us, said, "Hey, I was scheduled to take your group in March of 20, and you're the first group back that we've taken." And we were a little surprised by that, that we were the first group. And I have to say, there's this reputation of, the rude French and so on. And when we got to our hotel in Avignon the first night, the manager of the hotel, came out and made a point of just saying how glad he was to see us and thank us for traveling. And, we appreciated you, that you guys just plowed ahead to take this trip. And we were a little, taken back, just not, we just thought it was business as usual. And it turned out to be the French were really appreciative. And I think one of the things we were surprised about was just how few of these travelers that there were out there. We just sailed right into museums, didn't have to wait in restaurants. And as the French reputation for food and wine in the south of France is well deserved. Our chamber travelers took good advantage of all of that. And Monaco, we had a day trip to Monaco out of Nice, and the tour guide said, "I've never seen Monaco with this few of people in it." So as it turned out, it was great timing for us. And the French had just implemented that restaurants and museums had to ask for a proof of vaccination. And so all of our travelers had their vaccination card with them and simply showed their US vaccination card, and nobody had a problem. You just showed it, and there really was not that much scrutiny going on. Ian, I think they were required to ask for it, and we were required to show it, but it was really there wasn't a lot of scrutiny going on. They kind of looked at it, handed it back to you, and off we went. So really there was no, I don't know what you would say, difficulty. And if anything, things were easier because there were fewer travelers out there, and we could get into restaurants and museums and everything more easily than ever.
Well, I just want to emphasize something here that Joe mentioned, and if you're not heavy into travel, you may have missed this. Joe was originally planned for a March date, and he and his travels ended up in an August date. August is high season. March, April is low shoulder season. There are deals to be had out there. There is distressed pricing out there for the chamber who jumps on this at the moment. Pricing will go up, but if you look at the fact that Joe and the Kalispell Chamber started out in a March-April date and ended up in the best weather possible and the most expensive time to be traveling, that says a little bit about, if you're interested, you should jump on this bandwagon right now. I've got a couple more questions for you, Joe. How did your travelers receive the trip, and what was their enjoyment level on the program?
Oh, they absolutely loved it. It was just fabulous. As you noted, we traded shoulder season for high season, and the weather was just spectacular in the south of France. Every day, just perfect weather conditions, and just fantastic country. It's a spot that a lot of people had been to Paris or sort of other destinations, but I don't know if it was nobody, but very few of the group had ever been in the south of France to tour before, so they really enjoyed it. And the tour was fabulous. Great day tours to the Lavender Factory in Avignon, Chateau Neuf du Pape winery, famous historic winery there in Avignon, and a day tour of Avignon. We were in Nice with a side tour to Monaco and Cannes. One of the shots you had there was a lunch with Sally and Rich Thompson with seafood, all the raw seafood, and that was at Cannes, right across the street from where they have the big film festival. So we just had incredible destinations, and the tour guide was absolutely awesome. We'd love to, in any kind of a French trip, hook up with him again. And it was just great. And we ended with a farewell tour where my wife played the piano, and my brother-in-law who's an opera singer, put on a little show, and that was a big hit too. So the welcome dinner and the farewell dinner were great things to include in the tour.
Great, thank you. Just as I move to the next slide, Joe, just briefly, what's been your favorite destination anywhere in the world?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. Well, I really loved Oktoberfest because those are my people. But this French trip was just incredible. And as instead of trying to do everything in Italy at once, I've tried to take it in little bites. So anytime we can do an extension that includes somewhere in Italy, that's always a good day for me and our travelers. So we missed out on Milan as an extension of this South of France trip, but we'll have to pick it up somewhere else along the road.
Well, Joe, I truly thank you for joining us today, and it's been a pleasure partnering with you over the last 10, 11 years. And And I just wanted to conclude, we're up and ready. We have an ACCE fam trip, which is heading out to Egypt in November of this year. It's already full. We've got 32 execs and their companions on the program. Egypt's been one of our top producing programs for many, many years. But as I mentioned, and to coin an English phrase, the early bird catches the worm. There are many deals out there with distressed pricing on destinations at the moment. My conversation to you is, if you're interested, let's get the conversation going or the ball rolling, and make an assessment if this is something you wish to enter into. And if it is, let's get to planning, marketing, and travel in 2022. And we certainly hope you'll come and experience the Aventura World. Beth, do we have any questions?
We do not, but I have a few that I wanted to ask, because I'm very disappointed that I have a conflict for the Egypt trip. So I cannot make it this year, and I was so looking forward to it. One question I have is, other than Europe, and now we know about Egypt, where else are chambers traveling to right now in the fall of 2021?
This might be surprising. I could easily say that the fall is going to be our busiest travel period in the last 18 months. But I'm going to say that this fall of 2021 is going to be our biggest travel quarter from the last 4 years.
Wow.
The pent-up demand, the fact that people have been home or have maybe done a domestic road trip. They've watched everything on Amazon. The gardens are pristine. And now, like Joe's travelers who just returned from France, they're ready to get out. Egypt is one of our biggest destinations. Greece is another big destination for us this fall. Then we get into Spain. So our 3 destinations: Greece, Egypt, Spain and Portugal, and then we get into the south of France. Those seem to be the majority of our destinations that are, shall we say, booming right now. We expect in 2022, Italy to come back in full force. And Italy has been a favorite of the American traveling public for many, many years. There's a romance between the American traveler and the country of Italy.
I am not surprised at how quickly the Egypt trip filled up and sold out. So I'm very excited for you to be doing that.
If anybody's interested in we never know, somebody might drop out. If you wish to, roll the dice, send out to info@Aventura World here and put in the subject line, interested in the fam trip. We can see we've got your name. If somebody drops out, we will be on a cruising the Nile. We'll see the pyramids, the Sphinx. We'll be meeting government officials. Wonderful. It's going to be a special event. If you do need to talk to me, I am going to post, 760-212-0779 is my direct number. But yes, any other questions out there?
I'm going to ask you to go ahead and put that phone number as well as your email in the chat while we wrap things up, because I don't see any other questions coming in. I do want to ask Joe if there's any final words from him, because I know that he is an enthusiastic supporter of chamber travel.
Well, I guess I would just say, it's worth a try, and I encourage you to do it. It was really an integral part of our overall program and strategic plan for our organization for the last decade. It was very productive for us for many different reasons, as I covered, both revenue, staffing, from spacing of it over the course of the year, for multiple reasons, for I think it's worth a try, and I encourage you to give Ian a call and work on a good destination for your group.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Joe.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Especially want to thank Ian and Joe for sharing their expertise, and Joe for sharing that very fresh firsthand travel report from the south of France. I want to thank everybody on the call for making time for ACCE and Aventura World. And just a reminder that this session has been recorded, so that will be distributed and available in about 24 hours, also available on our website. So we look forward to seeing you again on another ACCE webinar. Thank you so much for joining, and gentlemen, thank you for all of your information today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
afternoon, everyone.